of Ricky and Michael's. Thank you so much. I don't know if you knew that, but I love that song. Okay. You could have sung it 2 or 3 times and I would have been happy. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. So good to see you, whether you're here in person, whether you are on Zoom, whether you're on Facebook Live, whether you see us later in the week on Facebook Live or YouTube, however you find us, we are so happy to see you and know that you are with us ever and always. And I bring greetings from Salt Lake City, where I was last week. I was speaking and doing a retreat there. And Reverend Cindy Edelson, who used to be our staff minister, sends her love and her appreciation for all of you. She's just, yeah, we had a great time together and did a lot of good work, I think. So, a life of service, and it is fall equinox. I'm so grateful that Arlene and Jana and everybody is mentioning the equinox, that time when light and dark are the same amount of time, and it's such an example of the spiritual life. I mean, you know, the human life, the spiritual life, the natural life, all of nature, all of them are the same life. And so there is an equal amount in terms of our spiritual growth and unfoldment too. You know, lots of time in New Thought, there was a time when we didn't even like to admit there was darkness. Any of you remember that time? You remember that? Yeah, we didn't even like to admit it because that wasn't the way we thought, you know. And now we embrace the darkness as just part of the journey. And it doesn't have to be suffering. We don't have to, you know, build our camp there or our condominium there in the place of suffering. But it's a blessing. Everything is a blessing. I look at those times in my life of darkness, and some of those times were the times of my greatest growth and unfoldment. And I think we can all say that as we look back. Did I just lose? Okay. The volume went down. Oh, there we go. I knew it did. All right. So, wow. So a life of service. We've been talking about service all month. And thanks to Reverend Deb, who was here last week. And I understand you all loved her and appreciated what she had to say. So what I want us to do as I begin this talk is to take a few deep breaths together. And as we're breathing, and I'll lead you in this breath, as we're breathing, I want you to imagine that you are the cosmos breathing itself. So I invite you to take a deep breath into your heart and out from your heart and into your heart and out from your heart. One more time, the cosmos breathing itself into the heart of the cosmos, out from the heart of the cosmos. So, your heart is the heart of the cosmos. And the entire cosmos is always breathing itself, always giving of itself. Every particle of the universe is always giving of itself to every other particle. That's what's happening in all of creation. And so in a sense, there's no way that any part of life cannot be serving any other part of life. Even sometimes, those times we think that we were misguided, that perhaps we blame ourselves, shame ourselves, do a guilt trip on ourselves because we think we weren't enough, weren't good enough, maybe we did something that hurt somebody, whatever it was. Expand your mind and your heart, particularly your heart, because your heart can know this. Expand your heart to know that it has all been in service to life. It has all been in service to the infinite. This talk took a different direction, as I often say talks do. You know, in the sense that, yes, all of life is of service. And we can be very conscious about the service we give as well. But catch this, that all of life is always of service. There's nothing excluded as one of the readings said, I believe the Science of Mind reading said, nothing is ever excluded, or maybe Cornfield, I don't know, one of them said that nothing is excluded ever. And in your heart, in our hearts, our heart has a brain in it, just as much as our brain does rather. Our mind is different from our brain. Our heart has this big, big intelligence within it. And when we access the heart, as we just did, we're accessing that intelligence, and that intelligence informs the brain, and then the brain can make even wiser decisions. So, and it's not to say that the brain is bad. The brain is great. Where would we be without it, navigating this earth plane, right? We need the brain. However, we also need the heart to inform the brain, and then the brain, do you see how it's a beautiful circulation? And then the brain informs the heart. So what I know my heart often tells me to do, always tells me to do actually, is to be of service. My heart just wants to love. How about yours? Does your heart want to love? Mine just wants to love. That's all it wants to do. It's like we're here to love. And when I'm in touch with that heart space, being of service is not a problem. When I'm in my brain space, however, I can get wonky about it. I can get like, oh, I don't have enough time. Or maybe I'm not good enough. I was at Reverend Cindy's last weekend, and I had gotten myself in a little bit of a mess inside my brain because I was thinking, oh, I've never done a leadership retreat before. I've done practitioner retreats, meditation retreats. I've never facilitated a leadership retreat. I don't know how to do this. And this week, what I'm talking about is sometimes we tell ourselves, I don't know how to do this, how to be of service in this way. And yet, Reverend Cindy was so insistent, she just knew this had to be. And so I said yes, the sacred yes. And it turned out beautifully, and it was such a blessing to myself. I trust it was a blessing to everyone there as well. So, sometimes we just get in that brain space where we tell ourselves, I'm not skilled. I don't have what it takes to do this, Sometimes we say, I don't have enough time. What are some of the other excuses we use? I wrote a whole bunch of them down. Oh, I have what's that? Not good enough. Thank you, because not good enough. I don't have anything special to give. Have any of you ever felt that way in your life? I don't have anything special. So-and-so, that person's gifted. That person has all these skills. I don't have that. And so we use, that's the brain. That's the ego self. That's the finite self. It gets all tripped up in the human appearances. And the reality is that you are the very presence of the divine. You are the heart of God on this earth plane. That's who you are. That's what you are. And in that heart of the infinite, and in that mind of the infinite, because mind you, it's the heart and the mind of the divine, and both are operating in us, in that heart-mind of the infinite is everything you need. And see, it expresses in a way only you can. Yeah, you don't have the particular gifts that other person has because you aren't supposed to. It's not your gift. You have your particular gifts. You have your particular skills, and only you can do it in the way you can do it, right? Only you can do it the way you can do it. And so what I would say is what we need to do, I don't like to say what we need, but what I need to do is continually remember that, to continually empower myself, to continually remember that all of the power, all of the love, all of the wisdom, all of the intelligence of the universe is within me, it's within you, it's within each and every one of us, and each of us is simply the dimension of all the rest of us. So you can look at anyone in this room, you can look at anybody that you can think of right now in your mind. You are a dimension of that person, and that person is a dimension of you, because there's only one. There's only one. And when we take that breath, and particularly when we take that breath into the heart and out from the heart, then we're breathing in that oneness that's all inclusive. and that wants to give and to give and to give. And yet, how often do we say in our finiteness, how often do we say, I don't have it to give? I can't give anymore. And I do want to say here, because here's where the equinox comes in, light and dark, being giving and receiving. There have to be times as well when we receive as well as we give. Because sometimes some of us can get so caught up in service that we forget that we need to be served sometimes as well. And I don't know about you, but the universe shows me that in mighty big ways that I do not like sometimes. You know? I've had a lot of that in the last few months, and it's like, okay, I get it. Once again, I need to step back. I need to allow myself to receive. So there does have to be that balance. And here's the deal again. When you're in touch with your heart, you know when that is supposed to be. You know, it can come through someone else that says, hey, you know, I want to gift you with this, or I want to do this for you, or, you know, can we be open and receptive and available to receive as well as to give? Because I look at all of you and you're all givers, you know. I just know that I'm looking at a bunch of givers here in this room. And sometimes we need to remember to sit back and let ourselves receive, and sometimes we say to ourselves, oh, but it won't get done if I don't do it. Anybody in here ever said that? But if I don't do it, it won't get done. Who's going to do it? Well, you know, there's a maxim in the universe that the universe abhors a vacuum. And if there's a vacuum, the universe is going to rush in to fill that vacuum. So yeah, so it might not be you. Well, and do we have the patience to trust and to know that all of life is always giving of itself, and indeed someone will show up to fill that, or else it doesn't need to be done. That's right. Right? And so, thank you. I love your feedback. Thank you so much. I always love it when I get feedback. So, yeah, so you know, I don't want to say give yourself a break, but give yourself time. Give yourself precious love time for yourself, loving time for yourself. And just watch. Everything's going to get taken care of. It is going to get taken care of. And just be open and receptive and available to be that presence of service, that presence of love. See, in my mind, where I want to be with this is not only do I serve, I give, but I want to be service. Do you hear? There's a little bit of a difference. I don't want to just do service. I want to be that consciousness. I want to be that love. I want to be that presence. That when individuals, as Howard Thurman talks about, you know, when individuals walk in my space, you know, they feel more empowered to love themselves. They feel loved. Or maybe they don't even know it. I bet all of us, just when we're walking down the street, are a presence. We're all a presence, you know. People may not even know it, but there's a sense, there's a soul sense within all of us when we meet each other. And every single person that we meet is someone that's here to serve us and that's here for us to serve. I'm telling you, every single person. And it's kind of a fun game to look at individuals when you pass them on the street, or when you're walking, or whatever, or we're driving. When you're driving, there's a good one. To look at individuals. Okay, how is this person serving me? How am I serving this person? And sometimes the person is serving me by pissing me off. You know? Because then I get to see, oh, there's a little trigger in there, you know? I thought I was entitled to have this roadway exactly the way I thought I wanted it. No, not so. You know, we're sharing. So everybody is serving, everybody is being served. And how am I serving? I was going to tell you a story a couple of weeks ago, and I never got to it because, remember, we were talking about Reverend Verona, we were talking about Gretchen, you know, who had made her transition, and so I'm going to tell you this story now, whether it fits or not. So, but it does fit. It fits with service. So this individual made, I'm going to call it a woman this time. They always call it a man. Made her transition, and she was at the pearly gates. We know there are no such things as the pearly gates, but just bear with me for this story. So she's at the pearly gates, and instead of St. Peter, it's St. Petra. And she's there, and she says, do you want to see heaven and hell, you know? And the woman says, yeah, I want to see, and, you know, and of course I want to go to heaven, but so the St. Petra takes her, and in this one room, there's this big banquet, and it's beautiful, and it's wonderful, all this luscious food, and these people loving each other up. And she notices, however, that in the banquet, that these people all had spoons that were so long, or spoons and forks that were so long that they couldn't feed themselves. Some of you have heard this probably. They couldn't feed themselves. And so what were they doing? They were feeding each other. They were feeding each other. That's what their thought was, to serve each other. So in this other room, and she says, now let's look at hell. In this other room, she says, well, there's a big banquet here too, and it's, you know, it looks wonderful. The food's all the same. It's luscious, it's beautiful. But what this person noticed, what was happening, was in the other room, they were not thinking of feeding each other. They were trying to feed themselves, and they were getting all disgruntled, all upset, angry, resentful that they were in a place that was happening to them. The difference between heaven and hell. Because we know, in our teaching, of course, we don't believe in a heaven and a hell in terms of hereafter. We know that we create heaven or hell here on earth within ourselves. We create it. And so we create that sense of heaven when we serve each other, when we love each other, when we forgive each other. Forgiveness is a big act of service. When I forgive myself, all of these are ways that I can be of service. How can I be of service? I know Reverend Deb talked about this last week. How have I been in service? And give yourself a pat on the back for all of the ways that you have served in your life. Yeah, and all of those ways that you didn't know you served, but other people might. Yeah, you can pat each other on the back too if you want. So, yeah, you know. Yeah, thank you for serving. Thank you for serving. So how can I cultivate that sense of service within myself? And one way that we can do this, first of all, is by doing meditations like we did at the beginning, like Arlene does with us all the time with the bowls, with the heart, you know, that breathing into the heart, breathing out from the heart, that in itself, that simple exercise, heart math, you know, that simple exercise expands our sense of love. It really gets us in touch with the fullness of love that we are. I do it every morning and every night. I do that kind of work because I want to be of service to the world, and I want to love myself. And so often, how we don't serve ourselves by loving ourselves, by taking good care of ourselves, you know, by eating the kind of food that we know is nutritious for us, by doing whatever exercise we can do that serves the body temple, by spending time in community with friends or family that's nurturing, having social situations that are nurturing for us. All of these ways we take care of ourselves. We are of service to ourselves, and then when we're of service to ourselves, we can be of better service in the world, correct? Then I feel filled up. I feel filled up. Feel full. I am filled up. Filled full is the word I'm looking for. Filled full. Fulfilled. Oh. I love it. Thank you, Matt. Yes, I'm fulfilled, and so I can fill you up as well. I can't fill you up, but I can, you know, present a situation where you can feel loved if you're open and receptive to it. Because again, we got to let it in, you know. Some people, I don't think anyone in this room, but some people are really practiced at pushing love away. And here, can we become just as practiced as loving them no matter what? not pushing ourselves on them, but can I love you no matter what? A lot of you know I had a daughter that was very difficult that way. And I had to keep loving her and loving her and loving her, no matter how much she called me names, she hated me, whatever it was. I just had to keep loving. And now we have a great relationship. However, it takes inner strength. And there are people in many of our lives who present that kind of a challenge. That's a huge act of service. Can I keep loving this person? Can I love myself in the midst of being treated that way? And can I love myself enough? God, this is going a whole different way. Can I love myself enough to not allow myself to be abused in a situation? It all is together. You know, all of it works together. So, I wonder what I was going to say. What was I going to say here? Oh, I know the other thing that sometimes keeps us from serving, and again I kind of mentioned it, is that perhaps we feel like we're not equipped to serve in a particular way. I see that a lot in spiritual centers. I'm not equipped to serve in this way. Well, you know what? Spirit doesn't call the equipped. Spirit equips those who are called. Spirit equips you. If you're called to do something and your heart is telling you to do something, you will be equipped for it. No question about it. And the reality is you have within you that equipment already. You have it within you. Example, when I was down at Agape International, it was about the third year, Reverend Michael asked me, he said, well, I think you would be good for the pastoral care ministry. Do you want to do that? Well, mind you, I didn't even know what a pastoral care ministry was. I'm like, well, what is that? He said, well, you know, it's things like visiting the sick, working with people who are grieving, doing a lot of care for people in crisis situations, in illness situations, in death and dying situations. I didn't have a clue how to do it. By the way, I did wonder why he kept taking me on hospital visits with him. He was training me, I think. But, I didn't know how to do that. I didn't have a clue. So what did we do? So what I did was I got a few people with me that I thought had really big hearts that would be good for that, and we visioned. We didn't just start a ministry all of a sudden. We visioned. What's God's idea for this? What's the divine idea for this? And then it started to unfold itself after a few visionings. And then people that were in the group actually started to find their place in the ministry. And what really set the ministry going was Patty Ballard, who was one of our practitioners, eventually became a minister and has since transitioned. Her father made his transition. His father died, and that set us going. Well, we're pastoral care. We need to do something here. We need to get people to the service to support her. We need to have people hold vigil at the service to support her. We need to get food to the family. We need to, do you see, it got that ministry started. And then it grew from there. We didn't know how to do it. Not one of us knew how to do it. We weren't skilled. We didn't have, what do they call it, CPA, Certified Pastoral Education, CPE. None of us had that. I didn't have that kind of education. But within us, we knew, because the heart within us knew. The heart within you knows how to do whatever you are called to do. I think lots of times it's the challenge is getting clear on what you're being called to do lots of times too. What is it that's calling me? And that takes, again, the practice here, meditation, asking yourself, what am I called to do? What is this about for me? And then listening, having the patience to listen, to be still. We had to be patient as it unfolded itself. At Agape in general, the whole Agape International, we were patient while it unfolded itself. And I say unfolded because it's not a matter of I'm manipulating, I'm creating, we're creating. It's a matter of there's a vision here, and it's ready to happen, and it's unfolding from within the vision. See? It's unfolding from within the vision. Our lives are unfolding within a large vision of our life, whether we've caught the vision or not. The universe has it, that's for sure. So, being of service, it's so rich. It's so rich. I can't imagine, at this point in my life, I can't imagine being any other way. And I have to say, I was blessed. I grew up in a family where my mother was probably overly of service. So I grew up in that environment. However, you don't have to grow up in that kind of environment to feel it in your heart. You be the one that brings that to your family, if it's not there already. So how can I cultivate this within myself? Because there have been times in my life when I sure as heck haven't felt like serving. You know, when I didn't even, after I left the convent where I was for 9 years, I didn't have any sense of spirituality, really. I kind of knew, but I didn't. And so, you know, I wasn't particularly, and yet there was something in me that still, like after my kids were born, I was with La Leche League. One of those weird, crazy moms that breastfed forever. Not forever, but, you know, was really into breast. But it was a way of serving and assisting other people who were having challenges with that. You see, how can I serve? Asking the question, like the one Reverend Deb talked about last week. How may I serve? Every day, I would say, wake up with the question. You wake up with gratitude. You wake up if there's anything to forgive. You wake up with forgiveness. All these little practices. You wake up asking, how am I to serve today? How can I serve today? And then you don't create a plan in your mind. You just are open as you go through your day. And it can be so small, you guys. It doesn't have to be this big, huge, monumental, earth-shaking act of service. It can be as much as a smile to somebody who looks sad. Or one day I was walking on Crab Cove, and this woman and her husband were walking, and he was smoking, and some people were really being negative toward him. Now, I'm not for smoking, mind you. However, I said, well, you know, I said something. I don't remember what I said to him, but I said something like, hey, you're okay, you know, just that little thing. And his wife said, oh, thank you so much, because everybody's being so negative. Now, of course, he didn't need to be smoking and all that. However, do you see what I'm saying? Instead of seeing the act, I was seeing the soul inside. I was seeing the person inside who had a moment of suffering there. You never know. You never know what I don't know why. There may be reasons that he was smoking that I'll never know. That his life may have been in such a hellish place, I don't know. But you know, you connect with the soul inside. And when you're open and available to connect with the soul inside everybody else, doesn't mean you have to go around touching everybody or even saying hello to everybody. You just keep your heart open and see everybody as the love and the light of the divine. You know, make a practice. And that's service in itself. Your prayer life is service. It's making a difference. And people think, well, I can't make a difference, all the stuff going on in the world. Yes, you can. And yes, you are making a difference. Because you're living a spiritual life, because you're increasing and expanding your capability to express love. Yes, and I've talked about that how many times, more than you can probably even count. But yes, indeed, you make a difference. We make a difference. We serve by our spiritual practice. And the deeper we go and the more loving we become and the more peaceful we are, that brings it to the world, whether we see it or not. Again, patience, right? Patience. And the world is shifting, and the consciousness is transforming, awakening and transforming on this planet. It's happening. I see it. When you look, you can see it. You know, aren't there, gosh, on YouTube, on social media, if you look in the right places, you see how much consciousness is having its way. Some people, one person said to me recently, she said, well, all my social media friends are so negative. I have over 4,000, and I don't have one negative person on that. You know, you can choose. You can choose. I'm going way off on other things. But anyway, you be that change. You be that peace. That's being of service. You practice acts of love, acts of kindness. That's being of service. You know, you see all kinds of trash on the ground. As long as it's safe to pick up, you pick that up and you put it in a trash bin or recycle it. That's being of service. So you see, it doesn't have to be huge. A life of service is simply walking and talking and being in the consciousness of how can I serve today. It's looking for ways to serve. When I go out, I'm looking for ways to serve. I'm looking for that person that might need the extra help or the extra hand. And it'll only take a minute. But that's the consciousness, because your heart is so expanded. It's so huge. It's the heart of the cosmos in you that operates through you and is you. You are that. So just be that. Be all that you can be. Be the greatness of love that you are. The greatness. You know, Mother Teresa said, it's not about, it's not about doing big acts. It's about bringing love to every small act. And someone else said, don't remember who it was, maybe one of you remembers, you can tell a person's consciousness by the way they pick up a pencil. Having respect for everything. Having love for everything. Isn't that beautiful? And I'll end with Malcolm X, because I love this, what he said too. That service is the rent you pay for your room here on earth. Okay, that being said, we're going to move into prayer.